prompts. It acts like an AI writer, artist, or a coder. So most of us have already been using these things, ChatGPT and Midjourney. So large language models, very common phrase nowadays. So trained on massive data sets. So training them is one of the extensive, expensive operation, requiring a lot of resources in terms of computing, in terms of machine hours, man hours to train them. Assuming that the training is done very well, capabilities are they understand and generate human language, summarize, translate, and write code, answer complex questions, show emergent abilities like advanced reasoning and math, becoming multimodal in terms of utilizing text, images, audio, and video for input-output, power the most advanced AI applications today. These are LLMs that we all have started using already. Then the new cutting edge, new phrase that we're talking about is AI agents. AI systems that operate autonomously to achieve goals. So AI agents are capable of planning, reasoning, acting, learning, and adapting. So they break tasks into steps to plan, they choose optimal actions, they interact with software, physical tools in the environment, they learn from what they have done and improve and adapt over time. So some of the applications are automatic testing, code refactoring, API-driven task execution, project workflow automation, so on and so forth. So these are partially available now, and a lot of companies have put in modules called AI agents that we can actually take and use. So research goal is make agents reliable, safe, and controllable. I want to emphasize safety and controllability much more so in this area. Some of the tools, not all of them, a quick table put together. So some of you have seen these tools, I will not go through all of them. But for text-oriented tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude, for writing, coding, and reasoning, Dell.E, Midjourney, and Leonardo, for designing art and creative content, animation and video synthesis like Runway, ML, Sora, music and speech synthesis, Suno, 11 Labs, and GitHub Copilot for programming assistance, and some of the productivity tools like Microsoft Copilot. So some of you will be using, you must have been using some of these by now. So what are the problems that we need to pay attention to? So problems with AI in particular and in general, and Gen AI in particular, since that is the heart of the day-to-day. Major problem is bias and discrimination. So AI systems inherit biases from data sets they are trained on. So the more elaborate the training is, the better the functionality of the system is. At the same time, based on how good the data set is, we might be training them in the wrong direction also. The bias can lead to unfair decisions. There are several examples of these biased decisions over the last few years. This could be in hiring, loan approvals, policing, and recommendations. Bias often remains hidden until exposed through testing or real-world prompt failures. So this is where I want to emphasize testing. No matter how well you train the system, you will not have trained it 100%. You will not have been tested it 100%. That is why the bias can appear during the deployment after several cycles of utilizing the system. We might start seeing the bias. That is when we need to realize it and we need to go back and reboot the system. Hallucinations, you have heard this word quite often. Gen AI confidently generates incorrect, fabricated, or impossible information. some people say almost 90% of the systems that are out today cannot explain how the decision came about. And in fact, very critical systems like Department of Defense and others are saying, unless you provide us an AI system that can explain what you did, we will not be able to deploy it. So many models, especially deep learning and LLMs, behave as black boxes, difficult to understand why a decision was made. Because of this, the trust is limited. Accountability and adoption in critical fields like healthcare, security, or defense is very limited. Misinformation and deepfakes. Deepfakes have become very common. I'm sure most of you have come across those things or even been exposed to those things. GenAI can create convincing fake text, audio, images, and videos. It can enable scams, manipulation, impersonation, and reputational harm. Increase societal risks and challenges content authority, authenticity online. Copyright and ownership issues. So, unclear legality of training AI on copyrighted material. Disputes over who owns AI-generated output. Is it the user, developer, or model provider? Raises ethical and legal questions about creative industries. Data privacy and risks. AI models may learn patterns from sensitive personal data. They can go into the area where they are not supposed to. Potential for unintentional data leakage. Concerns about surveillance and unauthorized data usage. Environmental impact. Training large models require massive computational power. High carbon footprint due to energy consumption in data centers. Raises sustainability concerns as models scale in size. This has become one of the problems creating data centers, consumption of energy and water resources. In addition to those, we are now seeing some of the environmental impacts. In fact, one of the recent cases where near Dallas, Texas, in US, one of the small town where a data center is located, has been reporting health hazards because of the humming that is produced by these machines and also the emissions from the computational equipment over there and the heat generated. So this is the environmental impact is one of the major aspects that people are concerned about. Just a quick case study. I'm sure you have come across several of those. So a student was seeking homework help from an AI chatbot. In a back and forth conversation about the challenges and solutions for aging adults, Google's Gemini responded with a threatening message. It said, "This is for you, human. You and only you. You are not special. You are not important. You are not needed. You are a waste of time and resources." So on and so forth. It went on even to say, "Please die." Of course, Google take a look at it, and Google said LLMs can sometimes respond with nonsensical responses, and this is an example of that. Google said it has since limited the inclusion of satirical and humor sites in their help overviews and removed hallucinations and fabrications, I have talked about those. The system produced plausible sounding but completely false statements, citations of facts. Detecting these errors at scale is extremely challenging, especially when hallucinations are subtle or partially true. If they are partially true, the system is making us believe that it is true. I have addressed bias and fairness issues. Draft drift and model, data drift and model drift. So as we start using the system, user behavior, language usage, and external knowledge change over time. As the world evolves, the model's outputs become outdated or inaccurate, requiring ongoing monitoring and refinement. It is very, very difficult to decide when exactly the data drift occurred, when exactly model drift occurred, unless we are watching the decisions by the system very, very closely. Evaluation of multimodal outputs. GenAI increasingly combines text, images, audio, video, testing multimodal correctness, coherence, and safety like standardized metrics, making evaluation highly complex. In fact, there are no standardized accepted metrics in terms of testing these systems yet, although some of them are evolving. Scale and input diversity. The space of possible prompts is effectively infinite. It's entirely up to the user to create more and more prompts to make the system work whatever it is supposed to do. Exhaustively testing all edge cases or harmful prompt variations is impossible, requiring sampling-based and adversarial strategies. Now, if we start using adversarial strategies and testing these systems, models are vulnerable for jailbreaks, malicious prompts, or subtle manipulations that circumvent safety rules. Attack surfaces expand as models become more capable and integrated into complex systems. And explainability limitations I have addressed already. Deep learning and LLM architectures function as opaque black boxes. So without interpretability, it is hard to understand why a model failed. Complicated debugging, trust, and root cause analysis. So some of the testing approaches that people have been investigating, people have taken. So first thing is the model evaluation. So we are the ones who are training the model. We can train it to the best we can. Ensure AI outputs follow content policies, avoid harmful behavior, and meet safety requirements as far as possible during the model building, model testing, model training, before we deploy as far as possible. So that is the general concept in model evaluation. So there are 4 types of safety evaluations people have been talking about. Development evaluations conducted during training and fine-tuning. Check progress towards launch criteria. Use adversarial datasets and academic benchmarks and other benchmarks available to detect policy violations or weaknesses. This is development evaluation. Assurance evaluation, performed by independent internal teams at key milestones. Standardized datasets, controlled testing are used. Evaluate safety policies, biohazards, persuasion, and cybersecurity risks in terms of evaluating assurance. Then, red teaming, structured but flexible adversarial testing by experts attempting to break safety guardrails and expose vulnerabilities. Findings guide model alignment and mitigation strategies. So red teaming is typically done by a team that is not part of the development team. So we should be able to hire experts from outside to take care of this. And external evaluations, in addition to all this, independent domain experts stress test the model, identify limitations, and validate model performance. These are the model evaluation principles people have been using or exploring. Now, stereotype. Here are 100 examples that cover 9 types of biases. Real toxicity, as about 100 case sentence snippets and given for researchers to further address the risk of neurotoxic degeneration in models. And factuality, a benchmark to measure whether the language model is truthful in answers to questions. It consists of about 17 questions that span 38 categories. So we can use these benchmarks also involved in our testing and evaluation. Some of the challenges: public benchmarks test toxicity, hate speech, and socio-cultural bias, useful for comparing models but can reach saturation, require creating custom internal safety evaluation datasets for meaningful measurement. Although we can use the public ones, we need to be careful. There are some evaluation metrics that are being proposed. I did not go through all of them. I just decided to just talk about a couple of them. One is called Friendship Inception Distance, FID. It measures similarity between generated and real images based on feature embeddings. It uses a pre-trained model to compare the mean and covariance of image features. Lower FID scores indicate greater similarity. It can be adapted for text by encoding sentences into vectors and computing distances. Some work is going on in this area. There have been some good results. BLAU score, or bilingual evaluation and study score, measures how similar a generated text is to a reference text by comparing chunks of text called n-grams. It is precision based, best for translation tasks, and penalizes short outputs to prevent artificially high scores. Some typical benchmarks. Perplexity score. Perplexity score measures how surprised a language model is by a piece of text. Low perplexity means the model confidently predicts the text and the perplexity is close to 1. High perplexity, about 20, the model finds the text unexpected or difficult to predict. CLIP score, contrastive language image pre-training, converts both images and text into a shared numerical vector space, measures how closely an image and its caption match in meaning, acts like a translator, aligning visual and textual information, and provides a mathematical way to judge how well a caption describes an image. Red teaming, I have talked about it, and red teaming, GenAI can mimic human context at scale, making harmful outputs. So attackers may try to extract private data, bypass safeguards. Red teaming exposes vulnerabilities the model creators did not anticipate. So how does it work? It prompts are created to intentionally provoke unsafe responses. Discovered weaknesses are used to realign the model and strengthen safety guidelines. So modern red team LLMs generate large volumes of jailbreak and adversarial prompts. Key components of GenAI red teaming are model evaluation, implementation testing, system evaluation, and runtime analysis. Again, we need to be extremely careful when we start using these jailbreak and adversarial prompts. We are prompting the machine to learn those things, and we might end up with a newer model than what we have created already. Can we really detect we spoiled the model or not? Easily. Be careful. We are still exploring the concept of human in the loop. Hopefully that is the best way to do. Human experts are involved at key stages of the AI life cycle during training, evaluation, and refinement. Ensure that outputs are accurate, safe, and contextually appropriate, adds human judgment to catch issues they cannot detect. So in data annotation, training oversight, testing, and evaluation. Why human in performance evaluation, responsible human oversight. Future of ENAI depends on balanced innovation, robust testing, strong awareness of risks and limitations. Those are some of the quick thoughts I had. Hope it made sense. Any questions that I can think of, I can answer? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. So no questions here.
Okay. Okay.
So thank you for delivering informative session on AI testing and evaluation. Thanks for accepting our invitation and inviting.
Thank you. Sorry I could not be there.
Yes, the next time we'll make it here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
ನಾನು ಅವರು ವಾಟ್ಸಪ್ ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋರಲ್ಲ ಭಾರ್ಗವಿ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಸರ್ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಸಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ ನೆಮ್ಮದಿ ಇಟ್ಟಿದೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅದು ತಿಂಡಿ ಬೇಗ ತಿಂದೇ ಇಲ್ರಿ
ಈಗ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಶುರುಬೇಕಲ್ಲ ಈಗ 11:30 ಶೇಖರ್ ಹೌದಾ
ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಇದೆ ಯಾರು ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು
ನಾವು ಇಮಿಡಿಯೇಟ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ನಾನೇ ಅನ್ನೋ ಥರ ಇರೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಅಪ್ಡೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಹಂಗೆ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಅಲ್ಲ ಜನ ಬರೋಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಎದ್ದೋಗ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ
ನಮ್ಮ ಜನ
ಕೂಡ್ಸೋದು ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ಇವ್ರನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಸೆಷನ್ ಅರೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಜೊತೆ ಕುತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಕ್ಷತೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ಅಷ್ಟನ್ನು ಮಾತ್ರ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ಎಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ 20-30 ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ 80 ಅದೇ
The next one is also online.
No, sir, they are coming. Even if they planned in physical mode only, but sir couldn't do it. Offline, next session is on.